Hello and welcome to this episode of BTR News. I'm your host, Scotty Reed, transmitting to you from behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. And on this particular episode, I want to fight some of the fake news that's out there because, the internet is a double-edged sword. You have access to so much information, but you are also exposed to just as much misinformation. If you don't have the time to do the research or the inclination to do the research, then you'll make bad decisions based off of bad information. It's that simple. And so I like to try to help my audience navigate some of this misinformation and point them to correct information. I feel like that's the reason they tune in. So on this episode, though, we're going to take a look at this particular post. They're referring to a group of black people by the term Blackamoor. And Blackamoor has several definitions, and we'll get into that. But they're also, they call themselves Moors, or they belong to the Moorish Science Temple. They usually use the surname El Bey, something like that. And so this is a group of people that also had tried to, who have been reaching out to me fairly recently, trying to get a broadcast on Black Talk Radio Network, which is managed by the Black Talk Media Project, of which that's the nonprofit that I'm the president of. And that's one thing I do not like, is misinformation and people lying and just causing confusion, and that's their intent, to confuse people. But speaking of intent or intentions, I really can't tell you why people, because I can't even tell you who the people are. When you're on social media, people can set up fake identities, fake profiles, and pretend to, create this character, or not pretend to, but create a character. And they have campaign. I'm in the game. I'm in the information game on social media. We reach a lot of people with the content that we promote and create. So I can't tell you the intentions of these people, but I just know I hate liars who lie. It's that simple. So let's jump into this. And this one is particularly offensive because he tries to say that the Confederate flag that was carried by some regiments of the Confederate terrorist army that started a civil war in the United States back in the mid 1800s, and then it was later adopted by some of these soldiers who were given amnesty for their terrible crimes, not to mention insurrection and insurrection and acts of terrorism to keep slavery in place. And so it was then adopted by them in a terrorist organization historically known as the Ku Klux Klan. So it's no doubt in my mind what this symbol represents, who it's associated with, who created it. But this particular meme that we're going to look at seeks to confuse people and misinform people about the roots of that. And this is coming from a person identifying as black, as a Blackamoor. Very disturbing. So someone on fake news, Facebook, into promoting or the creation and promotion of fake news, going by probably a fake name. I'm a Hotep El Bey. I mean, people can legally change their name into whatever, but most people on Facebook, that's not their real name or their government names. But this person wants to go with Amenhotep El Bey, who is identifying as a Blackamoor. And as we read this, you'll know why. But to use this terrorist flag, this flag that symbolizes racism, white supremacy, terrorism, slavery, and then to use another oppressed group, and we all know that slavery, or should know, was primarily for African Americans or African descendant people, black people, and those were the victims of those terrorists that created that flag and fought under it and terrorized people under it. But to use then symbol or image of another oppressed group, an indigenous group, and all of them, their hands weren't clean in slavery either, but to use one of them and say that they're a Blackamoor, or to say that, really you're confusing people on what you're saying. First you say it's a flag of the Iroquois Confederation, then you say that it's a Blackamoor flag. The flag was stolen from the Blackamoors, also known as Indians, and converted into a symbol of hate and slavery to get Blackamoors to disconnect with the South in their own sign and symbol. So you're saying that terrorist Confederate flag was created by Blackamoors, and this is just absolutely absurd. But hundreds of people seem to fall for this propaganda, and the intentions of the poster, I do not know. It was just shared with someone in my, I guess you would say, social media circle, and I just found it to be fairly disgusting and obvious to me as a person who I would say is well read, and identified, it's not even mistakes but lies right away. So let me just read it in its entirety that's associated with the image. The Confederate flag is not a racist symbol of slavery because it is the flag of the Iroquois Confederation. We're going to look up the Iroquois Confederation. Only Indians had confederacies. We're going to look up the word confederacy. Therefore, this flag could never possibly belong to Europeans from the South because Europeans did not have confederacies, because only Indians did. Wow. Just yes, this flag was stolen from the Blackamoors, aka Indians, and converted into a symbol of hate and slavery to get Blackamoors to disconnect with the South in their own sign and symbol. So, this person is just all over the place. So, apparently the Blackamoors created the Iroquois Confederation, which had this flag that is now being appropriated by racist white people and terrorists historically, and who use it today. This is just crazy. So it's a number of things we gotta look up the definitions of, since they're using English words. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll look up confederacies, because the claim is that only quote unquote Indians could create confederacies, or they were the only ones who had confederations. And wow, just crazy. But let's go ahead and look up Confederate flag. Not Confederate flag, but confederacies. Then we'll look up Blackamoors, and the jig should be up. So one of the first absurd claims made by a member of the El Bay family is that only Native American, indigenous people they was calling Indians, that they also said were Blackamoors, who were also, I guess, part of the Iroquois nation. But the first ridiculous thing that was said is that they are the only people who could create confederacies. So these are not English people, not Europeans, obviously, that if they're indigenous to North America. And Confederacy is an English word found in the English dictionary. So that should be your first clue. But when we look up the word in an English dictionary, it's a noun, and the first example given is a league or alliance, especially of Confederate states. The Italian Confederacy, known as the Lombard League. See, we thought it was going to talk about just the United States, but this particular example said there was an Italian Confederacy known as the Lombard League, which is, similar words that have similar meanings or the same meaning are federation, confederation, alliance, league, association, coalition. And so then it says another term for the Confederate States of America. When people say the Confederacy, they think you're talking about the Confederate States of America, which was a country that never existed. And these were U.S. citizens turned terrorists, all in the name of preserving white supremacy and slavery. Last example, an alliance of people or groups formed for an illicit purpose. The Yakuza is a secret confederacy of criminal fraternities. So the Yakuza is associated with Japanese people. So people create confederacies, alliances, leagues, and associations all the time and throughout history. So, but again, if people are unlearned, if they don't read, the greatest example I could use is Malcolm X when he went to prison and how he studied the dictionary, and that's what uh, uh, helped shape his intellect and ability to be able to debate any points on any subject or any topic with anyone and come up with a logical argument and not something so absurd as what's being presented to us about this terrorist flag. The next word used or term used to identify people, group of people or person was Blackamoor, and claiming that this was some indigenous tribe that was part of the Iroquois nation here in North America, when a simple definition of Blackamoor is a noun, and it was used to refer to, going all the way back to the early 16th century, a black African or very dark skinned person. See, you also had just Moors, and today you could see their descendants in Libya, part of northern Africa. They are light-skinned, curly hair. They're also known as Berbers, but Moor really is about Islam and the spread of that religion and its practices and what have you. So Moors were also associated with Islam, and then later, you will hear about a group of Moors which were both black and light-skinned Africans who conquered Europe and ruled Spain for a century or however long it was. I can't remember how many centuries it was. I don't want to speculate off a faulty memory right now. But the simple definition is a black African or a very dark-skinned person. Okay? In order to be African, you got to be descendant from people typically today known as modern Africans. Everybody traces their genetic roots. All those roads lead back to Africa, different parts of Africa. But typically when we're talking about Africans, we talking about people born on the continent or descendants of those who were born in Africa. So let's be very clear here. Now, Blackamoor, if you also do internet search on Blackamoor, it also refers to a form of jewelry. Now, this person, El Bay, also used the Iroquois Confederacy to weave their lives. And again, the Iroquois Confederacy were not African descendant people. As you can see, I pulled up here, Iroquois Confederacy, self-named Haudenosaunee, people of the Longhouse, also called Iroquois League, because Confederacy and League is the same thing. And these are the names Europeans gave these people. They were also called the Five Nations, or from 1722, Six Nations, Confederation of Five, later six Indian tribes across upper New York State that during the 17th and 18th centuries played a strategic role in the struggle between the French and the British. And obviously, these people were destroyed, but some of them do still exist. And guess what? They have a flag. Let's see if it looks like that racist flag associated with the terrorists who started the Civil War with the United States. So as you can see in the upper right hand corner of the video that you're watching, a purple flag with some squares on it that are linked, which looks like there's a pine tree in the middle. I'm not sure, but that's their flag. And they actually didn't create this flag until I think it was the 1980s. I was reading about this because I researched this a while back. And but a lot of indigenous nations don't have flags. They didn't use flags. They identified themselves with their paint on their body paint, the clothes that they wore, and their totem poles. That's how they distinguished themselves culturally from the other tribes who also did not use flags. So this is something. This is, I guess, what you would call white domination, and them adopting the practices of Europeans and using flags. So, you can see the name of the different tribes: the Mohawk, what is that? Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. And I'm sorry if I butchered these names, but let's just use the meanings. People of the Great Flint, people of the Standing Stone, people of the Hills, people of the Great Swamp, people of the Great Hill, and hemp gatherers. Oh, wow, hemp gatherers. Wow. So anyway, they've been around for a while, and they weren't African. Their descendants are still around. It was estimated in 2010 there's about 125,000 of them. That's not the most recent estimate, as we just had a census in 2020. And again, they are in the North America continent, primarily based in the Northeast, parts of Canada and upper New York, what we call New York State. So again, people, y'all perish for a lack of knowledge because people feed you misinformation and you don't take the time out to research. And so I don't know what the intent of these people are, to appropriate all these different cultures and mix match them together, using these terms. And Blackamoor actually was a pejorative term, like the N-word that Europeans used to use toward the Moors. You hear these people talk about some of accurate Moorish history and their domination of parts of Europe. You think those Europeans like that, and they didn't make up names for them, and what they call them black, Blackamoor, and they didn't mean it as a sign of pride or reverence or anything of the sort. They were pointing out a physical difference that they, was using to come up with a pejorative term for you. So, all I can say, people, do y'all research. When I come across these, even if you send them to me, I will do these little videos. And the purpose is not to, because we don't even know who this person is, to embarrass anyone, but it's just to provide people with correct information. Because when you have incorrect information, you make decisions off of that. Let's say you go out and you want to argue history with someone, and you come presenting this fake news to them. Now, let's actually look up who invented that flag, that Confederate terrorist flag, because that's what it is. That's what they were, terrorists. Let's look that up. Now, the first thing we must acknowledge is that the Confederate, let's call them the Confederation of Terrorist States of America, because that's what they were. They were never a recognized nation by the United States, but they had several different flags, and there were first iterations of it, obviously, second, and then a third one. And the second and third national flag of the Confederate Terrorist States of America, that's what that terrorist flag later adopted by the Ku Klux Klan, where it's just the red square with the blue cross, or X with the stars within the bars. That is strictly a terrorist flag, okay, that was adopted by the Ku Klux Klan. And the Confederate terrorists who created that flag, who gets that credit, which was again appropriated later by the Ku Klux Klan, is Captain Arthur L. Rogers. Clearly a European descendant man. This was not some flag created by this mythical tribe in the United States called Blackamoors, that was part of the Iroquois Nation, which was not even based in the South, as this person tried to claim, but was based in northeastern part of North America that covered present-day Canada and the United States, mostly New York, upper New York state. All right, so again, this is just ridiculous, man. I hate liars, and I just don't understand their motivation. Some of it is money. They create these cults, and people think they're given are being given some hidden knowledge and what have you, and everybody else is telling lies. The white man lying to you, and I tell you, man, lost and confused people, they fall for it. But I just hate lies and I hate liars. Okay. All right, so this has been Scotty Reed with a Black Talk Radio News episode, Fighting the Fake News. Please support the production of independent black media. You can do that by making a donation to the nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. Check the description in the video or podcast, and you can make your donation. Thanks all.